I've always been interested in learning about other cultures. I have always wanted to travel. I've always wanted to meet people and hear their stories. I think part of it maybe stems from my grandmother is very big into genealogy, into tracing family history, and so she's always stayed in contact with relatives from Sweden and Denmark, and they would come over when we were little kids, and it was like the best thing ever to be able to take this relative to show and tell as a little grade schooler. Be like, look at my relative from across the ocean, and like listen to their stories and hear how their lives were different. So it's always been an interest. And then flash forward to after graduation, I was working in a bunch of different jobs, and I had been working in human resources at a university in Texas. And while I was there, I started volunteering as a conversation partner to help students in the English language program practice their English. And I had the best time ever. I had 3 partners, and it was like the best part of my day, best part of my week. And so when the position that coordinated those matches opened up, I applied and I got the position, and it was, everything just clicked. It just fell into place. I loved it. I worked so hard at it. I found it to be the best, most enriching job I'd ever had. And through a series of life circumstances, I ended up leaving that position and moving to a different industry with healthcare. And every single day, I would look up at the door to my office and expect to see an international student there, like excited to tell me about some big life events, like maybe they had a new niece or nephew, or just wanting to like talk through life or whatever the case may be. And I missed it so much that I decided I had to go back into it. So I applied for graduate school and just completed my master's in international education, and no regrets. I love working with international students. I think it's the best possible job. I feel very lucky to have it.
Yeah, and like, how did you get this position? We talked about
This particular position.
Yeah.
So my graduate program, the requirements for the program is that you're on campus for 9 months out of the year, and then after that you get some sort of practicum or internship, or a job if you're lucky. And so I already had experience in the field, and so I knew that I was a competitive candidate for possibly getting a job. And so we didn't have to have a job lined up until, technically, people were still looking for things, but I started networking when I came to visit Seattle during Thanksgiving. So a full 6 months before I wanted to have a position. So I networked with people who were alumni from my program in the Seattle area. And then while I was home for winter break, and while I was home after I studied abroad, I networked a little bit in Minnesota too. Just trying to ask a lot of questions, a lot of informational interviews, like, what do you see as trends in the industry? And what are you most excited about? And what sorts of skills do you think people need? And what do you recommend? Things like that. It was an interesting time to be networking with international educators, because this was like the first informational interviews I had were 2 weeks after the election, when everybody was like, okay, what just happened? And then the second set of interviews, the informational interviews I did, was like 2 weeks after the first travel ban went into place. And so all the international educators I was talking to were like, what is going on? Like, we can't even keep up. Students are coming to us crying. We don't know how to help them because we don't have any information. And so it was a very interesting time to be talking to people. But I think that because of that, people were a little bit more honest and a little bit more thoughtful. So anyway, I had that context. And then about the end of February, I was like, well, maybe I should start applying for jobs. This particular position was the only job I applied for. It was a weird thing. Like, I applied 2 days before the application deadline and got a call back from the hiring team like a week later. I was like, okay. And within a month of applying for the position, I had a job offer, roughly. I was one of the first people to find something in my program. But it just shows that, like, the more that you plan ahead and the more proactive you are, the better your chances of finding what you want.
Yeah. And what other things that you like or don't like about your job?
The thing that I miss most about this position is that I don't have as much flexibility to hear students' life stories. I hear a little bit of it when I'm advising them, but it's a very narrow scope of students. It's more the students who are trying to change their visa status, who are applying for OPT, and even then it's like very, very strategy based. It's not like, let me have a whole conversation about your life. How did you pick UW? How are you doing here? How are you meeting friends? Like, tell me stories about celebrations you have in your culture. The only students I really get to see and talk about those things with are at UW time, and it's 1 hour out of the week. And then there's also just like the casual questions that students are asking at that time. So that's what I miss most. Although I think that it's probably a good thing, because at my previous position I would sometimes spend like 2 hours just sitting and talking to students. And sometimes it was to the point like, I have work to do, like I know that you're going through a rough patch right now, but I can't help the fact that your cousin was beheaded in your country, like but just I built much closer personal connections with those students because I had more flexibility. So I miss that. I also miss in my old position having opportunities to have casual interactions and less formal interactions. So I guess that kind of goes with that. The position right now focuses a lot on immigration, and so the frustrations with that are that policies change so quickly right now, and it's so difficult to keep up because sometimes we're not informed, and then students will come to us and say, what should I do about this situation because this has changed, and we're like, wait a second, we didn't get that announcement at all from the government. Like, we're the ones who are supposed to help you, and they're not even keeping us in the loop. So that makes it frustrating too. But the best part is always has been and always will be when a student comes with a really big problem, and then you're able to somehow move mountains to make a huge difference in their life. Or you're there to help celebrate their achievements when you know that they've worked really, really hard and struggled. Or when they come to you and they have this amazing internship offer, and you're like, yes, I'm so proud of you. It's really rewarding in that sense.